Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome to Signals and Standards with Suzie, the show where we decode mixed messages, raise the bar, and serve up real talk with a side of empowerment. I'm your host, Suzie, your go-to for truth bombs, clarity, and the kind of tough love that gets you unstuck and back in the driver's seat of your life. Together, let's turn those signals into action. Welcome back to Signals and Standards with Suzie, the show where we read the signals, raise the standards, and help you reclaim your worth. Today, we're tackling a topic that's quietly becoming a game changer in wellness and relationships: emotional minimalism. So essentially, decluttering your mind and relationships. Now, I want you to pause and think about your life for a moment. Your home might be tidy-ish. Your calendar may be perfectly organized, but your mind, your heart, that's a different story. Emotional clutter, maybe the lingering resentment from a past argument or the mental replay of something someone said weeks ago, or even the constant overthinking, or perhaps the anxiety of the unknown, all can weigh us down without us even noticing. It can make decision-making harder, relationships more confusing, and the oh-so-important peace feel out of reach. Emotional minimalism is about creating space for what matters most. It's about letting go of the emotional baggage that keeps you stuck so that you can make room for calm, connection, and clarity. And who doesn't need a little more zen in their life, right? Today we're going to break down exactly how to do this, from clearing emotional clutter to cultivating mental minimalism so that you can step into a lighter, freer, and more empowered version of yourself. So let's get started. So what does emotional minimalism really mean? And how do we even start? Let's get one thing straight. Emotional minimalism isn't about becoming numb or cutting people off. It's not about cold detachment or pretending that things don't bother you. It's actually the opposite. Emotional minimalism is a form of radical self-respect. It's the decision to be intentional about what and who you allow to take up that very valuable space in your mental and emotional world. Think of it this way. Your mind is like a home. Every thought, memory, emotion, and person you carry is a guest in that home. Some bring laughter, light, and comfort. Others leave muddy footprints on your floors and never pick up after themselves. Emotional minimalism is about learning to curate your guest list. It's standing at the door of your mind and saying, you can stay and you can visit occasionally. And sorry, this space is no longer available. We don't realize how much clutter we accumulate emotionally. Old arguments that still echo, guilt that lingers long after we've grown, expectations from others that never even belong to us. It's like keeping souvenirs from every disappointment, heartbreak, and mistake until your shelves are full, disorganized, and dusty. But really, nothing there brings you peace. And here's the thing. Emotional clutter doesn't always scream for attention. It often whispers. It shows up as overthinking, irritability, decision fatigue, procrastination, or even that heavy feeling that you're running on empty. It's like mental background noise, that static hum you stop noticing until silence finally returns and you realize how loud it really was. I like to think of emotional minimalism like editing your mental playlist. You know how you scroll through your music app and skip the same songs every time, but you never remove them? Those skipped songs are emotional clutter. They take up space and distract from the melodies you actually want to hear. When you finally clear them out, you make room for new music, new memories, new connections, new energy, and space for the stuff you actually want. Experts agree that minimalism, both physical and emotional, has profound effects on happiness and clarity. Psychologists often discuss how minimalism can actually improve mood, improve your focus, and also make you more resilient. When we simplify our physical and mental environment, our stress levels decrease and we're able to focus on what truly brings us meaning and joy. Because clutter, whether in your home or in your heart, demands constant attention. It's like leaving too many browser tabs open on your computer. You might only be looking at one, but the others are still slowing everything down. Minimalist experts call emotional clutter the hidden drain. It's those grudges, the unspoken resentments, and repetitive thought loops that quietly sap your energy and joy. You may not notice it day to day, but it's like emotional debt. It keeps accruing interest until you're completely exhausted. And this isn't just philosophy. Science backs it up. The International Journal of Research and Rehabilitation published findings showing that mental decluttering leads to better cognitive performance, emotional regulation, and even improved sleep quality. When you remove unnecessary emotional weight, you think more clearly, react more calmly, and sleep more deeply. It's a full system upgrade for your mental health. Another fascinating insight reminds us that our environment and mental state are deeply intertwined. A cluttered space often mirrors a cluttered mind. Have you ever noticed how cleaning your kitchen or organizing your desk or even folding laundry can suddenly make you breathe easier? That's not an accident. It's biology. Your brain craves order. Chaos, whether external or internal, signals threat, and calm and clarity signal safety. And just like physical hoarding, emotional hoarding is real too. Some people hang on to pain the same way others keep broken furniture or clothes that no longer fit, just in case. I'm guilty of that. Just in case they need that memory, just in case letting go means it didn't matter. But here's the truth. Letting go doesn't erase the meaning. It releases the weight. You can keep the lesson without carrying the burden. Here's where pop culture gives us a perfect metaphor. Remember when Marie Kondo asked, "Does it spark joy?" That question changed how millions of people viewed their belongings. But imagine if we applied that to our emotional lives. Does this relationship spark peace or chaos? Does this thought pattern spark motivation or guilt? Does this memory spark gratitude or regret? Because if it doesn't spark peace, maybe it's time to thank it for what it taught you and let it go. We live in a culture that glamorizes busyness and emotional intensity. Think about it. Social media celebrates overcommitment, oversharing, overcaring. It's like emotional hoarding disguised as connection. We've been taught that if we're not constantly on, constantly giving, constantly involved, not outraged continuously by one thing or the other, then we're somehow falling behind. But the truth is, when you declutter emotionally, you're not disconnecting from life. You're reconnecting with it more deeply, more intentionally, and authentically. So how do you start? The key is gentle simplicity. You don't overhaul your entire emotional life overnight. You start with small, mindful steps. Maybe you begin by journaling, not just to vent, but to notice patterns, to observe these patterns. What drains you? What excites you? What do you keep replaying? Awareness is the first step to clarity. Then, look at your relationships. Ask yourself, who do I feel safe with? Who do I feel seen by? Who leaves me second guessing myself every single time? Sometimes emotional minimalism means closing the door softly on connections that no longer fit the person you're becoming. Next, set boundaries, not as walls, but as filters. Forgive where you can, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve the freedom that forgiveness brings. And if you want a simple starting point, here it is. Choose one corner of your emotional home, one lingering resentment, one draining friendship, one mental loop you're ready to release. Then ask yourself honestly, does this add to my life, or is it quietly weighing me down? Because here's the truth. Peace doesn't shout to be noticed. It whispers, but you can't hear it if your mind is too cluttered with noise. Emotional minimalism is the art of creating space for peace, not just people. And once you experience that quiet, that stillness, that sense of lightness, you realize it was never emptiness you were afraid of. It was your own clarity. Think about it. We've learned that we cannot fully embrace peace if our minds are crowded with emotional clutter. So before you rush to fill your next moment, pause. Ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped carrying what doesn't belong to me anymore? Imagine your thoughts like a playlist. Maybe it's time to hit delete on the noise, those old tracks that no longer fit who you are becoming, the songs you really don't like anymore. Peace doesn't shout. It hums quietly beneath that chaos, waiting for you to turn down the volume. Sometimes the most empowering thing you can do is stop trying to fix the noise and make space for silence. Let's take a moment to breathe that in. Clear that mental clutter. Let your thoughts settle and allow the stillness to rise. Think about what you need to get rid of. Thank you for joining us. Now we're diving into your questions about emotional minimalism and clearing the clutter in relationships. And remember, you can always send in your own questions at powercoachsuzie.com. Let's get started. Question 1. How do I know which relationships are worth keeping and which are just clutter? That's such an important question and one that hits home for so many of us. Relationships are supposed to add to your life, not drain the joy out of it. They should feel like sunlight, warm, uplifting, life-giving, not a storm that you constantly have to brace yourself for. If a connection consistently leaves you feeling anxious, underappreciated, or like you're continually walking on eggshells, that's emotional clutter disguised as companionship. As I've written before, one of the biggest lessons we learn in love and life is that not everyone deserves a front row access to us. Some people are meant to be in your life for a season, not a lifetime. We hold on to relationships out of nostalgia, fear of change or loneliness, or even guilt, and when they've clearly run their course. But emotional minimalism challenges us to ask, am I holding on out of love or out of habit? Because truth is, love without peace is chaos in a costume. Think of your emotional energy like a bank account. Every conversation, text, or moment shared is either deposit or withdrawal. Some people fill your emotional wallet with encouragement, laughter, and safety. Others constantly withdraw, leaving you overdrawn and depleted. Emotional minimalism isn't about cutting people off. It's about creating intentional boundaries that protect your peace and your emotional credit. Here's a little self-reflection exercise I often give to coaching clients. Make a list of your top 5 relationships. the ones you invest the most emotional energy into, and ask yourself honestly, do these people lift me up, keep me balanced, or weigh me down? Notice how your body reacts as you think of each name. Your intuition is more on point than you give it credit for. Maybe you'll feel tension when you think of one person or a sense of calm with another. That's your internal compass telling you who belongs in your inner circle. And let's be real, the most challenging part isn't letting go, it's realizing that you deserve to let go. We get so used to emotional chaos that peace can feel boring at first. But peace isn't boring, it's healing. You can't grow a garden in soil that's choked with weeds, right? And in the same way, you can't thrive in relationships that dim your light. Sometimes you have to do a little pruning, not because you're cruel, but because you're cultivating space for new growth. Sometimes that pruning includes help from a therapist or coach, but either way, you must get there. Remember, you're not responsible for keeping people in your life who keep you from being yourself. Let that sink in. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your energy. The relationships worth keeping are the ones that celebrate your growth, respect your boundaries, and give as much as they take. Those are the ones that water your soul. Everything else is just emotional clutter. Question number 2. I try to declutter my emotions, but I feel guilty letting people go. How do I handle that? That word guilt comes up a lot, huh? It's real. It's that knot in your chest when you finally start choosing yourself and suddenly feel like you're betraying someone else for doing it. But here's the truth. That guilt isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something different. You're breaking a lifelong habit of overextending, over-explaining, and over-accommodating. You're shifting from being the emotional caretaker to being your own protector, and that takes courage. As I've shared before, we often hold on to relationships out of fear. Fear of being alone, maybe fear of disappointing others, or maybe as being labeled cold, selfish, or even too much. But letting go doesn't make you heartless. It makes you honest with yourself and them. There's a big difference between loyalty and self-sacrifice. Loyalty should lift you, not leave you empty. You shouldn't have to shrink yourself to keep someone else comfortable. And you shouldn't have to keep explaining your worth to someone who keeps forgetting it. Let's talk about reframing what emotional decluttering really means. You're not throwing people away. You're releasing the energy exchange that no longer supports your growth. Think of it like tending to your emotional closet. Sometimes you find a jacket that once made you feel amazing, confident, maybe unstoppable, but now it's tight, worn, or doesn't fit your style anymore. You can still appreciate what it once meant to you without keeping it around to take up valuable space. That's not loss. That's evolution. According to psychology, emotional minimalism is a conscious act. It's not about cold detachment, but about clarity. It's learning to say, this no longer aligns with who I'm becoming. You're not meant to keep everything and everyone you ever loved. Growth requires release. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you let go, you don't lose, you lighten. Guilt often shows up as an echo of old conditioning. That inner voice saying, you should be nice. You should keep trying. Oh, maybe you owe them more. But let's challenge that voice. Being nice shouldn't mean betraying yourself. Being compassionate doesn't mean allowing yourself to be drained, become a doormat. In fact, genuine kindness begins with the way you treat your own heart. And yes, it hurts to let people go, especially when they've shared pieces of your story. But love and loss can coexist. You can love someone deeply and still choose distance. You can honor what they brought into your life while recognizing that the season has ended. That's not cruelty, that's maturity, especially if you've made effort to heal things or make things better and nothing has changed. As I often tell my coaching clients, you're not rejecting people, you're realigning your peace. When you release with compassion, without blame or resentment, you give both yourself and the other person the freedom to grow in ways you couldn't while holding each other too tightly. Those who truly respect and value you will understand and even applaud your boundaries. Those who guilt trip you or accuse you of changing for the worse, they're really just confirming why that change was necessary. So instead of saying, I feel bad for letting go, try saying, I'm grateful I had that chapter, but I'm choosing peace over pressure now. You're not closing your heart. You're clearing the space for something better to bloom. So have that mature discussion with them without guilt, because letting go isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of balance. It's the moment you stop apologizing for choosing peace and start realizing it was yours to choose all along. That brings us to question 3. Can decluttering my emotional space really improve my mental health? Absolutely. And here's the truth. Not only can decluttering your emotional space improve your mental health, but it can completely transform how you move through life. When you release emotional clutter, you're not just tidying up your inner world, you're rewiring your entire emotional ecosystem. Your body, your mind, and your energy all start syncing in ways you may not have experienced in years. According to experts, emotional decluttering reduces stress. It quiets those intrusive thoughts in your head, improves your focus, and it helps you process emotions more effectively. You literally free up mental bandwidth that's been hijacked by overthinking, resentment, or old heartbreak. And who doesn't have that? Think about it. How can peace find its way in when every inch of your emotional space is filled with noise? When you're constantly replaying past conversations, worrying about what people think, or internalizing other people's chaos, your nervous system stays on high alert. You're surviving, not thriving. But when you begin letting go of what no longer serves your emotional health, your mind stops running like an overheated computer with 100 tabs open. You can finally breathe. I once wrote that clarity is the greatest form of confidence, and that's precisely what emotional minimalism brings. It's the difference between living in reaction and living with intention. When you start clearing away guilt, fear, and self-doubt, you don't lose anything that was meant for you. You make space for everything that is. It's like stepping into a room filled with sunlight after being in a cluttered attic for years. You suddenly realize how much lighter life can feel when you stop carrying emotional baggage that was never yours to begin with. Mental and emotional decluttering directly improves your focus, your motivation, and overall emotional stability. That's because emotional clutter, much like physical clutter, creates cognitive overload. When your mind is scattered, even simple decisions feel draining. But as you declutter emotionally, by forgiving, releasing, and redefining your boundaries, your nervous system calms, your resilience builds, and your energy returns. Emotional minimalism isn't about being cold or detached. It's about becoming intentional in all aspects of your life. It's a deep act of self-respect that says, my peace matters. My peace matters. You stop needing to fix, chase, or prove, and instead start aligning with what actually fulfills you. Think of it like upgrading your operating system. You delete the outdated apps, the what ifs, the should haves, the toxic ties, and suddenly everything runs smoother. You're not as reactive. You sleep better. Your creativity sparks again. Even your body feels lighter because your emotions and physical health are deeply connected. A truth explored in The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, which reminds us that unprocessed emotions often live in the body as tension, fatigue, or illness. We heard about that before. So yes, emotional decluttering can absolutely improve your mental health. But it's more than that. It's a return to yourself. It's the quiet realization that peace isn't something you find. It's something you create when you stop giving your energy to what's been weighing you down. Because peace doesn't appear when life stops being messy. It appears the moment you decide your mental clarity is worth more than your emotional clutter. Here's something to think about. Your mental space is sacred. Just as you wouldn't leave your front door wide open or let clutter take over your living room, you don't have to let every thought, worry, or draining relationship occupy your inner world. The Q&As we just explored show that emotional minimalism isn't about cutting people off or shutting feelings down. It's about creating intentional space for what truly matters. Your energy is precious, and the more you protect it, the more room you make for clarity, creativity, and genuine connections. As we move into the next section, think about this. What stuff in your mind or heart could you release today to make room for growth and peace? Take a moment when you have time to jot down one thought, one worry, or one relationship you can start letting go of. Even just a small step counts. Your journey toward emotional minimalism begins with a single intentional choice. Now, I would like to share a discussion from a recent client session. And I promise, if you've ever felt stuck or like nothing you do is working, you're going to relate to this. This client came to me feeling completely trapped in their own life. No matter what they tried, improving relationships, setting goals, practicing self-care, it felt like they were running on a treadmill, moving, exerting effort, but never actually getting anywhere. They described it as overwhelming, frustrating, and honestly exhausting. And I don't blame them. It's so common. We see that a lot. We try everything, new routines, better boundaries, self-help exercises. Yet some days we feel stagnant, stuck, like our energy is leaking away into some invisible hole. So we started by exploring emotional minimalism. This idea that your mental and emotional space is sacred. And I really want you to picture this. Imagine your mind like a room. If it's full of clutter, old worries, unresolved conflicts, self-doubt, guilt, perfectionist expectations, there's no room for light, right? For clarity, for creativity, where there's no room for all that good stuff. Emotional minimalism is about intentionally clearing that space. You're not erasing your history or pretending pain doesn't exist. You're simply choosing what belongs in your inner room now and what no longer serves your growth. We began by identifying the mental and emotional clutter this client was carrying. There was lingering self-doubt that whispered, "You're not enough," at the worst possible times. Overcommitment to others that left them with zero energy for themselves, and perfectionist expectations that created constant pressure to perform, please, and control outcomes. I explained that emotional minimalism isn't about doing less to be lazy. It's about doing less of what drains you so you can do more of what nourishes you. Next, we broke things down into small actionable steps because I've learned that transformation doesn't happen in giant leaps. It occurs in tiny, intentional shifts. We started with daily reflections, noticing moments where they felt drained, anxious, or reactive. We practiced gentle boundary setting, saying no without guilt, reclaiming the right to protect their time and their energy. And we incorporated micro self care practices, a mindful 10-minute walk, journaling, just one sentence about gratitude and lessons from gratitude, or simply turning off notifications for a set period each day to let the mind breathe. Each of those small steps may seem minor on its own, but together they're building blocks for a larger overarching goal, living more freely, intentionally, and with clarity. We also talked about therapy, and this is something I recommend often when emotions feel heavy and they're recurring. Sometimes the patterns we repeat are rooted in more profound experiences and trauma, and professional support can help us untangle them without judgment. Therapy isn't a sign of weakness. It's a tool to reclaim your life, to understand your emotions, and to build strategies that actually work in your day-to-day world. I shared a personal story with the client too because I firmly believe in practicing what I teach. There was a time in my own life where I was drowning in people pleasing and friendships that drained me. I said yes to everything and everyone, including invitations, requests, and favors, and as a result, carried emotional baggage from others that really wasn't mine to carry. I thought I was being a good friend, loyal, responsible, or kind, but in reality, I was running on empty, and it was sucking the life out of me. I didn't realize how much it drained me until I became more self-aware and started practicing emotional minimalism. I began to let go of people and obligations that didn't align with my life goals. I simplified my environment and reclaimed my mental space. And the shift? It was finally like stepping out of a crowded, noisy subway car into fresh air. Clarity, energy, and intentionality became part of my daily life. I could finally see my priorities again instead of being lost in the clutter. And I started attracting the best people in my life. And that's so important. By helping my client declutter their emotional and mental space, we started to notice small but significant shifts almost immediately. Decisions became intentional instead of reactive. Energy that had been trapped in worry, guilt, and old patterns started flowing back into relationships, passions, and daily joy. Small wins like honoring a boundary, saying no without apology, or taking 5 minutes to breathe began to feel monumental because they represented a reclaiming of their life. And this is the heart of emotional minimalism, creating space for what truly matters, not just cutting people off, but being intentional about the space people take up in your life. It's the freedom to think clearly, to feel fully, and to make choices that actually support your well-being rather than keep you stuck in cycles of overwhelm. As I reminded my client, and I want you to hear this too, the journey isn't about perfection. It's about progress, presence, and permission. Permission to let go of what drains you. Permission to simplify. Permission to reclaim your energy, your time, and your peace. So here's a thought for you. What's one small piece of emotional clutter you could release this week? One worry, one habit, one relationship that's taking up space you deserve. Even a tiny action counts. That's how you start creating room for clarity, joy, and intentional living. So let's take a moment to wrap up everything we spoke about today and really let it sink in. Emotional minimalism isn't just a trendy concept. It's a lifestyle choice that can transform the way you feel, think, and move through your relationships and your life as a whole. At its core, it's about decluttering your mind and your emotional world so that you can live with more clarity, calm, and purpose. Think about your inner life like a closet or a workspace. If it's overcrowded, messy, or full of things that no longer fit, it's hard to find what you need. The same goes for your mind and heart. Emotional clutter, old grudges, toxic relationships, self-doubt, perfectionism can pile up quietly, taking up mental real estate without you even realizing it. And the more space it occupies, the harder it is to think clearly, to feel peace, or move forward in your life. So, what do we do about it? First, identify the clutter. Notice which thoughts, relationships, and habits leave you feeling drained instead of energized. Then, set intentional boundaries, gently, firmly, and without guilt. And finally, intentionally release what no longer serves your growth. Remember, letting go isn't about giving up or being harsh. It's about creating space for what truly matters. There are many tools you can use to support this process. Journaling can help you identify patterns and clarify your feelings. Small goal setting turns big, overwhelming intentions into manageable steps you can actually achieve. Therapy or coaching can guide patterns that feel heavy or repetitive. Reflection, even a quiet 5-minute pause, allows your mind to reset and recharge instead of being reactive. It's also important to remember that your environment, habits, and relationships all feed your emotional ecosystem. A cluttered room, constant notifications, or draining connections can make your mind feel chaotic. Conversely, a simplified environment, aligned routines, and nourishing relationships act like sunlight and water, helping you grow and thrive. When you commit to emotional minimalism, the rewards are tangible. You gain mental clarity, emotional freedom, and energy that used to be wasted on worry, guilt, or unnecessary stress. You can finally focus on the things that matter: your dreams, your goals, your passions, and the relationships that truly enrich your life. So as you move through your week, I want you to ask yourself, what's taking up space in your mind or heart that doesn't belong there? What small step can you take today to create a little breathing room? Even one tiny action, saying no to something that drains you, journaling for 5 minutes, or setting a gentle boundary can be the start of a profound shift. Emotional minimalism isn't about doing less. It's about living more intentionally. It's about what truly matters to you. And that, my friends, is the gift of clearing space for clarity, for calm, and for a life that finally feels like it's yours. All right, let's take a moment together. I want you to really feel this affirmation. Not just say the words, but let them settle in your mind, your heart, and your energy. Take a deep breath in and exhale slowly. Now repeat after me, either out loud or silently in your mind. I release what no longer serves me. Pause. Feel the weight of what you're letting go of start to lift. I release what no longer serves me. Pause. Imagine opening your hands and letting old worries, guilt, and clutter drift away like leaves in the wind. I release what no longer serves me. Pause. Feel the space this creates inside you, the freedom and lightness of mental and emotional clarity. And remember this truth. You have the power to protect your mind, your heart, and your peace. You're the gatekeeper of your energy. You get to decide what stays, what goes, and what grows. Every time you choose to release what doesn't serve you, you're making room for clarity, joy, and meaningful connections. Take one more deep breath in, and as you exhale, feel the release, the calm, quiet power that comes when you claim your space back. Let this be a small but potent act of self-care, a reminder that your peace isn't negotiable and that you are worthy of a life that feels light, intentional, and entirely yours. That's it for today's dive into emotional minimalism. If you take one thing away today, it's that your emotional space is sacred. Thank you for being here and stepping into your power with me. I look forward to seeing you next week for another empowering conversation. In the meantime, catch the replay of this and all our previous shows on the Signals and Standards with Suzie podcast on all your favorite platforms. Goodbye for now. For daily inspiration and practical advice, find me on social media at Power Coach Suzie. Got questions or ideas for the show? Head to powercoachsuzie.com where you can connect with me, explore the blog, or learn more about what I do. This is Suzie signing off. Until next time, keep reading the signals and never, ever lower your standards.